have it. From Bobby Ray. I'd like to call to order the Utilities Special District Board of Directors meeting Monday, September 16, 2019, 6 p.m. Madam Roll Call.
Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Julia Botel. Board Member Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Board Member Shirley Lanier.
Here.
Board Member Douglas Lawson.
Here.
Ex officio Board Member Mayor Ronnie Felder. City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
Interim Executive Director Deirdre Jacobs. Here. District Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. District Attorney Don Nguyen. Here. District Finance Director Randy Sherman. You may proceed.
Okay, we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman McCoy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Any person who would like to speak on a consent agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
No, Madam Chair.
Disclosures by the Board of Directors. Have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lawson.
Yes.
Board Member Lanier. Yes. Board Member McCoy.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All matters listed under this item, the consent agenda, are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Do we have any, one that would like to remove the item from consent? Have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Move consent.
I'm sorry,
Second.
did we have any, we didn't have any public comment
Madam
cards.
Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on the consent agenda. The acceptance of public comment cards for this section of the agenda is now closed.
All right, so we had a motion and a second. All right, Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lawson.
Yes.
Board Member Lanier. Board Member McCoy.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card. You will have 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or item considered. Do we have any awards and presentations?
None.
Public hearings? Okay. Public comments should start at 7:30 unless we are finished with our other business. We'll begin sooner. Regular agenda, item number 1.
A resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, adopting the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for the Utility Special District and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this item before you is to adopt a resolution that effectively approves the $28 million budget for the utility special district. Staff has had the opportunity to have discussions with the board during your budget workshops concerning the proposed operating capital as well as personnel-related expenses. At this particular moment, staff is prepared to answer any questions that the board may have as it relates to the fiscal year 2019-2020 operating budget for the utility district. If it is the board's pleasure, staff does have a brief presentation that can be shared if necessary.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, the presentation, is it specific to the 11 slides here? Is it something we've seen before?
It's something you have seen before. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was just curious, is there an allocation similar to how the CRA pays the city for administrative costs to use, like for the meetings and audio-visual time? Is there an allocation from the USD for essentially USD meetings that we have as well?
There is an admin fee that is a transfer over to the general fund for general government services, so such as the audiovisual and the requirements to conduct this meeting, but also to provide human resources assistance, finance assistance, all other support services, information technology. That is one fee that is levied in the utility district, then transfers those monies to the general fund to offset the cost for providing that service.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So is it an omnibus admin fee that encompasses everything? There's no specific delineation for us as being a legislative body?
I don't think it speaks to that specificity. I will ask that the district finance director provide some additional clarification on that.
Follow up, Madam Chair, while he's coming.
Go ahead.
So I'm just asking because I'm looking at, there seems to be a lot of carryover, like training and development for USD administration, and that's it. I'm looking at 20,000. I want to know, does that encompass the actual administrative staff over in the in utility district, or what exactly does that represent, these charges?
Mr. Sherman, if you want to.
Yes, Randy Sherman, Finance Director for the Utility District. Board members, we actually have a cost allocation plan that we actually go out to each individual department and find out what services they are providing for the utility district. And then based on the costs that they have incurred, depending on the services that they prepared for the prior fiscal year, because we use the prior year information, we actually put it into the cost allocation plan. So we actually charge for your time, city hall time, city attorney, city clerk. It actually goes through department by department and does the allocation basis. Anything that you see, and that's one lump sum number that we put. So we have all the detail in the cost allocation plan, but it's one number in the budget. Anything else that you see in the budget would be individual line items that they themselves control. So if you're looking at staff development, that is in their budget for them to apply and use for staff development.
And Mr. Sherman, can you also provide some perspective as it relates to the apportionment of monies to make sure that it is fair and equitable, that it's not something that if we are running a deficit, we can increase it by 20 or 30%?
We actually use a program that's approved by the Federal Office of Management and Budget. And we've worked with them to make sure that our allocation methodology is fair and equitable.
And that's been the challenge with some local government municipalities with utility operations, that there's not that mechanism in place to ensure that the fees are levied appropriately, because if you have a situation where you're shifting some of the burden off of the general fund onto the utility district, inevitably you increase your user fees or your rates. And so we have here a process that it is fair and apportioned appropriately, that we can be able to justify the amount that is transferred to the general fund to provide other government services that support the utility district.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Final question. I'm just curious as to exactly what, I'm looking at contingency that's being, being referenced a few different times between the departments. What does that represent? And if it's not used, does it rolls back into the enterprise fund?
Yes, sir. If the monies are not expended for those particular divisions, then it just rolls into the fund balance. In some cases, you would have funds that would transcend fiscal years if projects haven't been completed or haven't been started. So those types of things that are reoccurring in nature, we end up bringing forward to the new budget year.
Okay, so I'm looking at USD administration expenses. This is on page 3. Contingency, we budgeted $550,000. And last year we budgeted $600,000, and we haven't spent any of that. And you just said projects. Now, is this for specific projects, or is this for administration?
If I may, let me answer that. We try to budget 10% in contingency of operating costs. So not contributions that we put into the renewal and replacement fund, not of debt service, 10% of operating costs. So the operating costs for 2020 are right around $22 million. So that's why you'll see 550,000 in each individual cost center. Add those together, it comes up to $2.2 million. And again, if they don't get utilized during the year, they do flow down to the USD's fund balance. And then ultimately, if you follow the flow of funds within the utility district, it flows into funds that are available for capital. So again, then we can come in, and this past year, I want to say it was in March, we actually took money out of those funds to pay for a project that had come in over budget. So we pulled, I want to say it was $800,000 out of that capital fund balance account to be able to use for a capital project.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Board Member Lawson?
Yes.
Board Member Lanier? Yes. Board Member McCoy?
Yes,
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes,
Unanimous vote.
Mr. Manager, Madam Chair.
go ahead.
So this backup says first reading. Are we gonna have this again?
You have the second and final reading of the budget that will be presented to you on Wednesday. So that will solidify the budget in its entirety.
Right, but this specific item we just voted on that deals solely with the utility district, are we gonna see that again on another
No,
vote?
it's because it's adopted by resolution, as the budget is adopted by ordinance.
Okay, well, I thought so. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah.
It says budget on first reading. I mean, okay,
Sir.
thank you.
Promise.
Miss Anthony, for this agenda here, we just call number one, but the minutes are number one, right?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So, what number do you have?
I have number 2
For what?
for the adoption of the budget, the resolution.
Okay, so, where does this come from?
Number one states that it's
It says that's the one
a
about the.
resolution?
Uh-huh. So that should have been two,
Yes, Madam Chair.
and then now we're on number three.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
All right.
It does not represent.
All right, so item number three, resolution 35-19 UD. That's the one,
Is that what you have in front of you on the hard copy, Ms. Madam
that's the
Chair?
one I had to write on and make it a three, it was a two.
Give her that one, please.
Thank you. So item number three,
A resolution of the Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach Utility Special District, Palm Beach County, Florida, awarding bid number 119-168 to Johnson Davis, Inc. to relocate, replace a 10-inch diameter asbestos concrete water main along Congress Avenue from West 13th Street to Exes Lane in the amount of $676,774, authorizing the Utility Special District Chairperson and District Clerk to execute this agreement, authorizing the Finance Director to transfer funds from project number 18162 to project number 18152, authorizing the City Manager to approve change orders up to 10%, and authorizing the Finance Director to make payment from project number 18152 in an amount not to exceed $676,774, and provide an effective date.
may I have a motion? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, if I can have Senior Utilities Engineer, Mr. John Armstrong, present this item.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair,
Good
Councilman, Councilwoman, City Manager. The county has a project of putting in streetlights on Congress Avenue. It's a county road, and they're putting it in from MLK Junior Boulevard northward to Blue Heron Boulevard. And a portion of that, where they put their streetlights and such, is in conflict with our 10-inch asbestos concrete water main. It's an old water main, about 50 years old. And so we're required, because it's their right of way, they're accommodating us, so we're required to move that water main. And so we put it out for bid, and Johnson Davis is the lowest bidder, and they're a reputable bidder, reputable construction company. And as a matter of fact, they're our ongoing contract to do repairs and such for a city's water and sewer utility. So recommend that the board approve awarding the bid to Johnson Davis.
All right, do we have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
just for some clarity, I don't believe, we didn't put this out to bid, did we? I believe we have a contract currently, continued.
Yes, sir, we did put it out for bid, and went out for a competitive bid, and the lowest bidder was Johnson Davis. There's two other bidders that had higher bids.
Do we have a standing contract with this company?
Yes, sir. They're our on-call contractor in case we have emergency repairs for our water and wastewater system.
Any other questions? All right. Anyone else?
Yes,
Go
so
ahead.
I think we've seen something similar to this along Australian, and this is much higher than what we've seen before, but this is $676,000. Like, how do we account for that, Mr. Evans? I mean, clearly, this is not something that we knew that the county was gonna come in and put in, flashing school zone signs, but, I mean, this is well over $500,000.
And this is something that I would ask Mr. Sherman to assist me on, but from what I've been communicated from staff is that the rationale or the reason that we are in this particular predicament is that some years back, the city advocated for decorative lighting to be constructed on Congress and Australian Avenue. And this particular project is now at the point where the county is moving forward with installing the decorative lighting. So since we have our infrastructure in the county's easement, we need, and FDOT is managing the project, one of the things as an arrangement that if there's any conflicts with projects that they move forward, we are now responsible for relocating our utilities. It would be the same arrangement if another utility company was in our easement and there was a conflict with a city project, they would have to be on the hook for expending the monies to relocate their utilities. Mr. Sherman, if you can speak specifically on where the funding has been identified, but one of the things that I've also heard from staff is that this particular piece of pipe has asbestos and is old concrete pipe. By going ahead and addressing this now, it takes it off the books for a project that would this board or future boards would consider in about the next 7 or 10 years. So it provides a little bit more reliability and newer infrastructure in the ground to sustain our ability to provide potable water. But Mr. Sherman, if you can speak specifically on to where the funding was identified.
Yeah, again, Randy Sherman, Finance Director. Excuse me. Yeah, this project has actually been around for about 10 years. At one point, it was actually included in the CIP. At the point the city had made the request, Congress Avenue had been redone by the county. City had made the request to do the decorative lighting, and it was being carried in the CIP, and I want to say it was probably about 4 years ago that it finally came out. I think Public Works didn't think that this project was ever going to come to fruition. So now it's coming back. The county's moving forward with it. The funds that are being used for the utility district coming from the perimeter wall project, which they don't believe they need the funds that are currently budgeted there. So they are moving it over to this project so that they can, address the request from the county.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
so it was added back into the capital improvement plan, or no? Or this is some contingency?
Well, again, the perimeter wall funds are in the capital improvement plan. They're not using the funds for that project, so they're moving it over to that account, 18152, to make the payment to the county.
But this particular project was not a budgeted project for
No.
this fiscal year.
No.
So typically, they don't share in the cost of relocating any underground utilities if it belongs to the municipality?
No, they do not. That's where you'll see both the city will make payments to the county occasionally, and the utility district will make the payments to the county. It's a county project, and we pay them to do the work.
Okay,
That's it?
yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Will this new main, water main that's being relocated, will this be compatible with whatever plants or upgrades we decide to do within the city? If we decide to put a new plant in?
Could you repeat that, sir?
This new main that's being replaced, will this be compatible if we decide to replace our water systems?
Yes, sir. It's going to be a ductile iron pipe,
Mhm.
which is a much better pipe than the asbestos concrete. Is pretty much, we don't use that anymore. That's a type of pipe that's been used in the past. We've been having problems with that type of pipe. This ductile iron pipe, it's the strongest pipe used in water distribution systems. It's going to be under the road, repetitive vehicle loading, so it's the right pipe to use.
And will that pipe be consistent with wherever we put our water plant, whatever location we decide to place it, or whatever type of system we put in place?
Yes, sir, definitely.
And so we won't have to replace this again?
Maybe in 75 years,
Good timing.
when it gets old.
Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Armstrong, and we're not going to find ourselves in a situation that we have to relocate this pipe again based on where we're putting it as a result of this construction project.
We're moving it further from the side of the right-of-way, from the sidewalk towards the middle of the road. So there shouldn't be a need to replace it if they do some other type of modifications along the side of the road.
Madam
There
Chair.
was a question earlier, if I can add, about the difference in cost between this and the water main on on Australian. There was just one school flasher sign, and so that was very small, less than 10% of the size of this project. There's more complex involved.
Mr. Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, Mr. Evans, have we looked at the plans, development plans for the county and the school board moving forward to see what we may be hit with in the future? What are the signage they may be looking into in the next 5, 10 years?
One of the things that's required is concurrency between multiple government entities. So we are supposed to be coordinating our capital projects and the process that we go through with the school district and the county to ensure that in the event that there's development that's occurring or projects that are coming online, we have the capacity, we have the ability to do that. So there's a concurrency review that is required for all local government entities to go through, so we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have a bunch of moving parts and we have unbudgeted projects that come before you.
Thank
That's
you, Madam
it?
Chair.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lawson,
Yes.
Board Member Lanier. Board Member McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 4.
A resolution of the Utility Board of Directors of the City of Riviera Beach, Special Utility District, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing the Board of Directors to appoint the senior utility engineer to the East Central Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility Board according to the interlocal agreement signed September 9th, 1992, and the renewal of the ECR interlocal agreement signed April 20th, 2010, and providing an effective date.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair, pursuant to the interlocal agreement executed on September 9th, 1992 with the ECR, the city has maintained a seat on the Board of Directors. Staff is recommending the approval and the appointment of Mr. John Armstrong to serve as a board representative for the ECR. This is more so their technical board that meets on items as it relates to the treatment process on the wastewater side. Staff either myself or the assistant city manager will be present at all those meetings to ensure that if there's any decisions that are made or discussions that are had, that the board is fully attuned to what's happening, and of course, if there's anything related to a fiscal impact. I can tell you from my experience dealing with the ECR back in 2017, most of all the appointees are either your top-level technical staff. It is not something that administrators serve on, but staff will be there from the manager's office to ensure that there's consistency of information and that the board is fully abreast of what's going on. So staff recommends the approval and is requesting the appointment of Mr. John Armstrong to serve on the ECR board as a representative for the City of Riviera Beach Utility District. Staff is prepared to answer any questions the board may have.
We have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
so is it Mr. Joe Jackson as well, or is he already an alternate member?
Mr. Jackson, I think he's an alternate, if I'm not mistaken. Ms. Jacobs, are you aware of Mr. Jackson being the alternate for?
Madam Chair, he is being appointed as the alternate member.
Yeah.
All right, anything else?
So is there a, I guess, convention or, I guess, prescribed way as to who should be the regular and who should be the alternate?
In most cases, and Ms. Jacobs, certainly you can opine on this, in most cases that I've seen, it's been the staff that has the engineering, the technical background. Mr. Walker had served in that position during my tenure in 17, and I believe maintained that existing seat in that capacity until a utility district director was selected, and I think did the change occur then?
From my understanding,
Did he maintain the position? Yeah,
correct, Lucinda?
yeah.
It was Mr. Horton, and upon his departure, Mr. Layton was appointed as the city's rep.
Follow up.
Yes.
So again, this is Joe Jackson is being appointed for the,
As the alternate.
Joseph Jackson is being appointed as the alternate
Yes, sir.
for the first time.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, Madam Clerk?
Board Member Lawson,
Yes.
Board Member Lanier. Yes. Board Member McCoy,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, we'll move into our public comments. Public comments shall be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the City of Riviera Beach. Please, Utility District, please be reminded that the City Council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the district board chairperson may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly.
Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards.
All right. Discussion and deliberation. Discussion by the executive director of the utility special district or the city manager.
Ms. Jacobs, do you have anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Madam Chair, I wanted to see at the next utility district meeting if the board would consider a resolution that effectively would consolidate the utility district meetings with the regular meetings of the city council, to have the second regular meeting of the council, have it to where your utility district will convene either immediately following your city council meeting or prior, but that would alleviate the days that you would have to come in to discuss utility district meetings. That was a practice in the past, and so we believe with the small number of items that the board considers on any regular basis, that we can consolidate that and bring that as part of your second meeting of the month. If the board is inclined to do that, I will bring a resolution to encapsulate that and memorialize it so we can proceed forward accordingly.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, I don't understand why we would need to do that, because I understand the need for consolidating, but we just had 2 meetings that came up as special meetings, so would it really serve us a purpose by memorializing this in a resolution? Because a resolution becomes permanent until you undo it by a new resolution. but it already appears according to the bylaws and the charter of the USD that the chairperson alone, and also the chairperson alone or the executive director can call for a meeting of the utility district, but to have a resolution to say that we can do something that which already is a power that's vested with either the USD director or the chairperson, it seems a little fruitless.
Madam Chair, if I may, to that point, it would be something that would stabilize and establish a consistent day versus any chair can change the date if we go on that train of thought. And so the thought process was to memorialize it in a resolution that is a consistent day versus a chair or an executive director having the ability to change or deviate from that. And plus, it creates that public record for us to be able to, in the event that there's different folks in the room, that they can see, okay, here's the documentation that effectively has changed the date. So it is whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead. Ms. Lanier, I'm sorry, were you done?
No.
Go ahead.
So I don't have a problem with it. It just seems like we just had two meetings, today being one of them, and then also the meeting that we had last week on Wednesday, that there was no week's notice and it wasn't a regular meeting date of the USD. So it just, I mean, we're making it permanent, Mr. Evans, and again, I don't see how that essentially is resolving anything, because again, they can call for a meeting at any point. So that's it.
Ms. Lanier?
I wholeheartedly agree with combining the meetings. Having a set meeting for the utility district at the second meeting of our regular council meeting will certainly be of help to myself and to the residents in terms of knowing exactly when these meetings will happen. So yes, I'm in agreement with that.
When, just for history, we did have these on, I can't remember if it was the first or the third Wednesday, but it did not become a separate day until that utility district stipend kicked in. Once that stipend was being received, they decided to add an addition, have a separate day. So that only started, I want to say, October 2015, I believe. But prior to that, it was being held like at about 5:30, I believe, right before one of the regular city council meetings. So, you know, I totally support just being able to put it in writing. We don't have to have, we can just bring it before us when we have a meeting with a resolution stating that this is the date, and everyone will know on record what date it is that we're gonna have it in. We don't too often call special meetings for utility district unless we have some major issues going on, and at which point we probably need to have it if we call it. But I have no problems with it being put into a resolution to combine that date. Anything from you, Mr. Lawson?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, so you can
Yep.
bring forth.
Michelle,
All
thank you, Madam
right.
Chair.
All right, comments from the board? Mr. Lawson?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Ms. Lanier?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Mr. McCoy?
Nothing.
All right, and I have nothing. And with that, we stand adjourned.